Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. I'm outside. It's pretty cold, but uh, I will keep going. Like it's not that cold, but the title for tonight's episode is Designing Cultural Programs for the Multidimensional. Idea crossed my mind. For a moment, I was entertaining in my inner realms where imagination and memory live. I wondered that if in the future we kept entertaining, we kept considering as human beings that if there's only one dimension we're in, okay, there's just one world, one dimension. I thought about in the future, let us say we went on with this notion, suddenly we made extraterrestrial contact. Let's say aliens came down from the sky, they shaked hands with the human leader shaked hands, and eventually an extraterrestrial, let's say, had to incorporate into human society. Let's say the human leader makes a deal, some human beings go live on that alien's planet, and some aliens come and live on our planet, imagine. Now, imagine that this alien, we have built a sort of human culture, and we are trying to incorporate, trying to adjust. Let's say you go to a hotel, and let's say, I don't know, let's say there's an alien. Let's say this alien goes to a hotel, and this alien is multidimensional. So a multidimensional being can't be provided a singular service. That means when there is more dimensions, it's adjusted for, it's like in the chat section says, how about getting a poncho blanket to keep you warm on the porch? Don't worry, my inner realms create such heat. There's actually a Tibetan Buddhist practice, I believe it's called Tombo. And the whole practice is that the practitioner, these incredible willed Buddhist practitioners, they go into like some freezing cold area. They take even cold blankets, cold towels, and they throw it on them, and then they just visualize inside them literally a fire, like legit, like fireplace level of fire inside of themselves. And so, like, it warms them up. Anyways, back to the topic for tonight. Pretty much, I'm wondering if in the future, how will our cultures or how will the cultural programs adjust to the potential of a multidimensional being? A multidimensional being, as far as I'm just an ant on a hill here talking, but I'll tell you that I feel there's two types of multidimensionality. There can be a being that in the outer realms can have one body, but in the inner realms could have multiple senses of identity. And there can be a being where in the inner realms they just have one sense of identity, in the outer realms they have multiple bodies. And the examples for both these, I will give you real examples, but to give you examples of the metaphor, it's pretty much we have a cake. Imagine two cakes. One cake, you cut up the cake into pieces. It's an internal multidimensionality. The whole thing is intact, but the collective outer has the cake. The cake is still the cake. It's just cut into pieces. So the other type of multidimensionality is if there's just different cakes. You got an apple cake, I don't know, banana cake, carrot cake, like different dimensions, different types of, you can say, realms. So to, let's say you're that hotel owner, okay? That example I used earlier, let's say you're an extraterrestrial that's landed on Earth and you want to go to a hotel. And you go to a hotel, and in order to, let's say the hotel owner is going to be like, okay, we got extraterrestrials as customers now, so we got to do something, you know? We can't go out of business. And for example, we would acquaint for the genetics of the extraterrestrials, and the hotel owner would provide like a in the refrigerator of the hotel owner may put like food that's okay for that extraterrestrial to eat. Do you see? I'm just saying it's like the cultural program. Like that's an example of a part of the cultural program making up. What's the term I'm looking for? Acquainting. Pretty much, our cultures are not designed for multidimensional beings. They're designed to identify us as a story. Let's say there was, I don't know, let's say in the educational system in the future, after this idea of a actual extraterrestrial immigration has taken place, let's say for the first time we have human kids going to school with actual alien kids, you know, like extraterrestrial aliens, right? So imagine the teacher is teaching, and we suddenly realize these extraterrestrials don't have ears. And the educational system has to make up. It's like, holy shit, we got a multidimensional kid in the classroom, no child left behind, whether human or non human. You know, that would be the future slogan. So, for example, if that extraterrestrial doesn't have ears, then there has to be, like, I don't know, some sort of telepathic translator or some sort of adjustment, you know? Because what knowledge is image. Really, we're just passing around images. Now, a question comes, how are cultural programs designed? Our language is multidimensional, yet we are not. A word can be used in so many ways, in so many sentences, yet we feel as energetic beings primarily that we are limited. We are limited to form. You know, it's like, what do we do with all this information? What do we do with all these energetic outputs in form? You know, when you look at an anthill, the ants don't have an ego. A group of ants can lift up like an object so much beyond their size. And so I feel our minds can actually lift up the world. And like a group of ants that can move a giant thing beyond their size, I would say our human minds can lift up the inefficiency of the world towards efficiency. And I guess that's where the need for cultural design comes from, because most people, society is there to serve them. They have this impression, but I don't know how many people have the impression that society exists to be served. I feel all human beings have a dimension of service, and it's not enough uh, to just put your energy on yourself. I feel if a person just is selfish a whole lifetime, they will feel like they missed out. You know, right now, our sight is very easy. What I mean by that is it's through one body. Right now, we are experiencing world, like the sensation of the world, through one lens. It appears, you know. But behind our eyes, this lens is multiple. And so what's really fascinating that if a person remembers whatever, let's say 10 years ago you fell from a chair. Regardless of how you fall, as long as the being is alive, they can stand. Regardless of what story the being finds themselves, they can always notice the empty page. And I feel that emptiness is very crucial to redesign the cultural program. You can say culture, how it comes about, is behavior and values. And so, what really is culture is people's behavior. And when you look at the origin of language, where language comes from, it was behavior, and behavior that wanted to be instantly communicated. Do you know you put words for it? That means you can totally imagine that the early human beings, they didn't have an alphabet, they were pointing to things properly. Then they realized the sound could be a pointer. That means before language, you had to actually find someone's eyes and point, imagine. But then you could be anywhere and like just look at the convenience of language. You're like, you know, you ask like a question and somebody in a different room, of the same building can answer. So like that's the thing about language. It is a quicker way to take the world to our mind. So the behaviors have to become more multidimensional, and it's not that our behavior, like it's not that like the persons can should have more bodies to maintain, but it's like, guys, it's honestly too cold. I gotta go. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, There's a scholar named Terence McKenna. He says culture and ideology are not your friends. He is someone. He is someone who perceives that it's a mass hallucination. That over a nature that is experiential, we have built our own story. And so I find if culture, in some sense, wasn't there before and it arose, it appeared, that means there was a decision for how it appeared. Now, if we can go back to that point where before we believe in the story, it is from there where we can change the story. Here, I want to share with you a definition of culture. It says culture is an umbrella term which encompasses the social behavior and norms found in human societies, as well as the knowledge, beliefs, arts, laws, customs, capabilities, and habits of the individuals in these groups. So we can say, if we were to draw like, how would I say it? Let's say if we had no words, no names, and like a TV remote, there was a mute button pressed on the world. We would just be objects moving. So, culture allows us to be subjects moving. And it is not the real thing if we choose to keep the validity of our beinghood, if I could say. The validity of it, culture is how subjects live together as objects. So we have to have a new relationship with how we are being a subject in the world, how we're a new relationship of how we're being a subject in the world, And honestly, like a yin yang circle, how we're being an object, pretty much how we are being a subject in an how are we okay, I'll say this again. How let's look at culture through this lens that we are being, like the yin yang symbol, a subject in a subjective self in a objective world, and simultaneously we are being an object self in a subjective world. That means either we are the object, the world is the subject, or we are the subject and the world is the object. And pretty much all human psychology divides between this. Because most human beings, I mean, pretty much everybody, just instinctually, we see cause and effect. Because we see cause and effect, all of human knowledge is left on to what we see as the causal position. So if human beings are, you open your house door and you go and enter society and the cultural program and whatnot, how you see you are a causal position, pretty much how you step out of the door. So we can say we are setting our settings. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the human biology, like the brain, was so easy? You could just open up a menu, go to the settings, you know, change the suffering level, change the joy level, increase the brightness. I would say an example of a cultural program for the multidimensional means for the first time we create a culture for a subjective object and an objective subject. A subjective object would be like a creature of myth, where it's technically a subject, but you can see it. You can see it as an object. You know, enough of an object where we have people make films of Greek mythology and whatnot. But then you have that which is so subjectively the subjective object and the objective subject. Now, the objective subject is, so it's pretty easy. From objects come concepts, or how would I say this? Okay, right now, if I see the object as the causal position, I'm an object. Because causally I'm an object, all subjects are the effects of this object. But if I see myself as a subject first, then the object can be one of the effects. So it could be that we are here thinking like, all right, we're just this one human body and there's just this unknown mind. But it could be that if the subject was in the causal position, the effect is the subject. That means all of human psychology is literally seesawing between everything and nothing. We are here entertaining ourselves as human beings, but the way our psychology is designed, based on the object coming first or the subject coming first, it's like either matter is a dream of reality, or reality is a dream of matter. Yeah, either we're objects right now and the subject is literally like a film projector. Like one view is right now as I'm speaking, it's as if there's a lightning storm occurring in the brain, and this lightning storm is like projecting the subject I am that I'm speaking to you right now. Or all of these, all my biological body is awaiting the instructions of the invisible roots of my being. I feel it is the case that we tend to feel the mind is dependent on the body, but if the mind is independent from the body, there can be no death as a subject. So memories never die, but what holds the memory perhaps does. Jacqueline says the common denominator is love in the chat section. I would say it is love. Love is the horizontal foundation. It is necessary. But after you have love, then there comes, I would say, honor, the next ideal, service, what you do with that love. You know, there's a difference between being loved and actually loving something outside of yourself. One is like a receptive state where you're waiting to take, and there's another state where you are waiting to give. Because we are emotional beings, love is, of course, an ultimate priority. But I feel because we're also emotional beings, we have to, you can say love is the shield and the intellect is the sword. And we need both. It's like you can't just become a heart. Your brain's going to be like, excuse me, I'm right here, you know? And you can't just be, just go linearized sort of. You can't just zoom in on the brain. Your heart's going to be like, excuse me. You see, right now, we as human beings, we don't have to care that much for the multidimensional. We can just act like we don't know anything. We could be fools till the end of time and still everything becomes okay. They say ignorance is bliss, right? And if people make the purpose of life happiness, they will actually settle in ignorance, I find. That means there is something superior to emotional truth. And most people, like oh, take for example someone where a salesman is selling them a refrigerator. The person hears all the facts linearly. It's like, oh, it's the newest model refrigerator, how great. At the end, the person makes an emotional decision. So it's like we human beings, we can rationalize as much as we want, but at the end, what do we do with the emotions we have? The emotions have to fit part of the equation. And because we're emotional beings, it technically means either we can never be rational. We can experience rational moments, but we can never be rational if there are instinctual influences. You know, it's as if the body was a perfect machine, then we could totally accept rationality as the ultimate method. But there's so many things that it's just like sometimes it's not even about knowledge, it's about what does the moment require to advance. Can you imagine a civilization that has taken studying the multidimensional so seriously that we have wondered about individual beings in individual systems, collective beings in individual systems, collective beings in collective systems, and you can say individuals in a collective system. Pretty much there's so many angles to life, and we have explored a few so far in our human history, and we have settled down. And I will tell you that the most honorable quality of human life would be to extract the new. Imagine the species suddenly declares that we have always had parallel universes, parallel realms, and that there is so many types of beings in the universe, and it's just that we are a certain range. We are like a certain radio frequency out of all the radio waves. And just the fact that we can share waves, just the idea that right now I'm speaking, I feel this is maybe we can say a sort of journey of the human psyche, or let's say anybody who starts off in a belief, anybody who's in a belief, until they get the direct experience of their belief, they will push aside all other direct experiences and all other sorts of beliefs or disbeliefs. That means when a person puts on a mask, they need to have a good reason then to take it off, or they will feel like a fool. And this is why you can say people who don't want to feel like a fool, they get ideologically possessed the most. And usually in youth, it's the case. Anybody who wants to be right in the moment, the moment's like, do you know you're a fool? And if the person says yes, then the moment's like, all right, you can be right. But if the moment's like, hey, do you know you're a fool? And the person's like, no, I'm not a fool, I know everything. Then the moment's gonna be like, sit down. If we go from belief, a moment of belief, reverse engineer. That means, let's say you're a person right now somewhere in the world and you believe, I don't know, A equals B or whatever. Like you believe something is something. Whatever, how you do is you start off from a moment where you trust your direct experience. It could be from drinking a glass of water. Like if it's like the person may not trust that if they close their eyes, like could they be communicating with something more or not? But the person can trust like holding a cup of water in their hand. Now imagine you held a cup of water in your hand and you studied, how do I trust that there's a cup of water in my hand? And you see at the end of all the processing, of ideological processing, you see that the way you know things is because it is. Do you see? It's instantaneously being. I feel the scientific mind that was so keen on evidence now has to wonder about what does it mean to have evidence. especially in a changing world and in a world where we are literally saying it's unobservable. And I was like, okay, something doesn't make sense here. We're saying there's an unobserver, yet we are declaring a sort of righteousness that, our methods are outer, let's say a physical world arose, then a physical self arose, then a non-physical self arose, and then a non-physical world. And so we started off as physical, and now we are here as subjects wondering how they're here. Culture is behavior, is collective behavior. And pretty much if we move differently, we experience life differently, we behave differently. If we behave differently, the collective behavior is different. The collective's behavior is going to be different. And that's where multidimensional blueprint for culture begins. You can say anytime a creature realizes it is more than language, it is gifted new dimensions of experience. It's just the law of nature. If you dare go forth, you shall see more. Okay, so I would like to go into a quote tunnel of culture. A quote tunnel is pretty much I read a bunch of quotes if you're new to the show. Marcus Garvey. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Nature doesn't need people, people need nature. Nature would survive the extinction of the human being and go on just fine. But human culture, human beings cannot survive without nature. Excuse me, that's Harrison Ford saying that. Swami Shivananda, moral values and a culture and a religion maintaining these values are far better than laws and regulations. Tomato, tomato, guys. Tomato, tomato. Alicia Garza. There is hope for humanity, but in order for us to get there, we really have to interrogate not just what it takes to change laws, but what it takes to change culture that supports laws that uplift humanity and also support laws that serve to denigrate it. Excuse me. Mahatma Gandhi, a nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the soul of its people. There you go. From the people, from how the people are moving, comes the culture's behavior, which then defines the nation. Because what is a nation technically on a mental level? It is the expression of the minds of the creatures in that nation. That means whether it's an alien in that nation, whether it's a AI robot in the future in that nation. Do you know sci-fi? In a sci-fi way, we can see various possibilities to this. And you can say culture, if it's being created from the mind of people, if you as a human being in this ocean or river of behaviors of human beings on the planet behave in a new way, you are technically creating a new culture, because culture is the behavior of the people that's accepted. It's trends and patterns and behavior and events. Thomas Wolfe, culture is the arts elevated to a set of beliefs. Paulo Coelho, culture makes people understand each other better. And if they understand each other better in their soul, it is easier to overcome the economic and political barriers. But first they have to understand that their neighbor is, in the end, just like them, with the same problems, the same questions. Abbas Kiarostami, Iranian director, notable Iranian director, he says, in order to be universal, you have to be rooted in your own culture. This could be, I'm pretty sure he doesn't mean it this way, but potentially, like, one can say, like, all right, maybe we've been dealt the hands for a reason. Do you know that means in a poker game, for example, in a Texas Hold'em poker game, it's as if, like, it is true that people can fold, but imagine in the middle of a game, the person walks out of the table not making a decision. You can say that's someone losing their cultural identity. Now, what's strange is in the future, because it's going towards global, I don't know, let's zoom in your inner realms, like, what am I saying, zoom, rewind in your inner realms, like, I don't know, 100 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future, eventually global archetypes are going to become personified. What does that mean? That means, I'll give you an example. It's like religion. In the 6th century, people saw the universe as a personality. Okay? Now it would be as if the universe seeing people as the universe, instead of people looking at the cosmos and being like, yo, it's a person. It's like you imagine the cosmos looking at the person, and the person being the cosmos, like the reverse of the God algorithm, the God pattern. It's the God pattern. I would say it's like this. Where do people come from? People. Where does the cosmos come from? An origin point. A point of origin. Like, that is, I would say, religion's greatest contribution. That it just added a question to the intellect. That what if the mind and the psychology what if the universe has a psychology? That means we're here, like, how do we feel about the world? And what if the planet has feelings? What if that when human beings violently destroy one another, the planet feels it has made a mistake? Seldom is this said, but you can be eons ahead if you realize the eons land to an instant. That means we're here thinking time is going forth, and the universe is just laughing like, buddy, I've been here from the beginning. What going forth? Albert Camus says, without culture and the relative freedom it implies, society, even when perfect, is but a jungle. This is why any authentic creation is a gift to the future. Without culture and the relative freedom it implies, society, even when perfect, is but a jungle. Culture is the behavior of human beings. The behavior of human beings is pretty much putting order to the chaos of the cosmos. So it makes sense, maybe Albert Camus was saying anything authentic that has never been here before, and behavior and action, a sound, a communication, a move, or whatever. Like, the new updates how we are holding the whole thing. Professor Noam Chomsky says, all over the place, from the popular culture to the propaganda system, there is constant pressure to make people feel that they are helpless, that the only role they can have is to ratify decisions and to consume. Sir Ken Robinson says, creativity is putting your imagination to work, and it's produced the most extraordinary results in human culture. Ken Robinson says the role of a creative leader is not to have all the ideas. It's to create a culture where everyone can have ideas and feel they're valued. I wouldn't say that's not okay. The quote is spot on, but let me tell you what I feel. The creative leader, see, there's some leaders that they just want to see a good outcome, you know? But there are some leaders that they just push aside the idea, the story, who's who, what's what, and they just look at the picture, the overall picture. And when you look at the overall picture, you see a very simple truth. That it's all that has happened so far is just human beings on a rock in the middle of nowhere. And so there is no leader when it's a species, like a candle flame trying to not go out, the light of it not go out. It's as if there's nothing to win here, to be honest. There's only something you can build, and the momentum of that could maybe be some sort of, I don't know, boon or gift. That means I will say this: doing something new means you have to be a fool to the previous one. But that's a great quote by Ken Robinson, that it's not about pretty much you gotta build a self-sustaining network that tries to that endlessly continues. I mean, that's just what self-sustaining means. We want to build an advanced civilization that if we're not around, it's still advanced. It's still endlessly advancing. Charles Darwin, the highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. Menander says culture makes all men gentle. Neil deGrasse Tyson No one wants to die, and no one wants to die poor. These are the two fundamental truths that transcend culture. They transcend politics, they transcend economic cycles. They don't. But of course, I know what he means. I find Neil deGrasse Tyson. No one wants to die, and no one wants to die poor. Immortality and luxury. Pretty much, it's a cornered animal psychology. When we as human beings, think of it this way, imagine someone hasn't ate food for days. The only thing they want is food. So I would say these are the two things, these are the two biggest fears. That when Neil deGrasse Tyson says no one wants to die and no one wants to die poor, he could be right. He's saying that they transcend culture. Why? Because they come from fear. Fear transcends culture. Fear has been there from the beginning, before we had cultures around. Because it's a universal fear. Because no one wants to die poor, why do you want money? To increase the quality of living. It's as if like we've actually are kinda in like a, I don't know, prototype of heaven called Earth. Free yourself, and you have freed the world from what was never you. There's a quote from excuse me, Fabio Cannavaro. A coach needs time to get to know the players, the environment, the fans, and the culture of the club. You can't solve everything in 1 or 2 months. Oh, okay. New coach, new problems. Deepak Chopra says, New Age values are conscious evolution. A non-sectarian society. A non-military culture, global sharing, healing the environment, sustainable economy, self-determination, social justice, economic empowerment of the poor, love, compassion, action, going beyond religious fundamentalism, going beyond nationalism, extreme nationalism, culture. Okay. Yeah, the thing is, I mean, human beings are just like moths are drawn to like light. I feel that human beings are drawn to new ways of expression. And whatever ideological system that somehow subconsciously authorizes that, the person feels drawn to. You know, it's like, think of it this way. Think of it, how interesting would it be that the human psychology, the mind has been watching the body. That means, what if this, I mean, this may be a bit of a far-fetched idea, entertain it playfully, but what if God was a metaphor for the mind? That means, what is watching the body at all times? You are. Your mind is. What is everything within? Your mind is within everything. That means check this out, the mind created the word, and then the mind received light. What I'm saying is, it's like God could be the brain. A metaphor, sorry, not the brain, the awareness that comes from the brain. If the brain was an antenna, or if then brain was a candle, like the light of the candle flame, is like your mind. So the candle flame, the flame is like your brain. Or let's say, what's the thing called? I don't know. I can't remember the word for it, but that part of the candle where where you light up. The brain is like the object, the mind is the light, and the world, the room, the darkness of the room and the unknown is beyond the mind's light, Oh, there we go. Thanks. Somebody said in the chat section, wick. Yeah, the wick of the candle. There we go. Yeah, the wick is the brain. The wick of the candle is the metaphor for the brain. Imagine. And the rest of the body is the wax of the candle. Now, the light of the candle is the mind. And the mind has been somehow, like the candles have been turned on. Do you know? That means there was even the design of the candle wick in place. Like, that's as mysterious as whatever subject we think is behind the universe. That means one thing that both the secular society and the religious society and these poor atheists and theists who debate on YouTube, I don't want to say like they're doing incredible, like it's incredible to watch this, but I'm saying like we have been fighting for language over too long as language and living as language for too long. To truly be a mystic means you have to be the lover of the unknown. That was one of those first sentences I remember my eyes read. That is true mysticism. You can process all that you think. Imagine you read all the books in the universe. Imagine you somehow had all the information online. Cyberspace was connected to you. Imagine all the greatest teachers in the world all in one moment gave you their teaching, and you received all their teachings at once. You reached the ultimate, you became the being who knew everything. Then, where would you be left? What would you do? You see, we are like, it's this strange romance. We want knowledge, but if we get it, everything becomes meaningless. The truth. That means one thing that nowhere in this universe it is written is that is the truth of existence comprehensible by the human? Is it for a human? That means, are we designed, like, you know what it is? It's like looking at an ant. Again, I'm going to go back to this ant metaphor. It's like looking at an ant and being like, how much potential does this ant have to understand why we vote? Do you know, for example? The ant is like in its just own game of life, you know? And unless it has an ability to notice beyond that game, what do your eyes truly deserve? And if the answer is unknown, you don't know, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, smile, breathe, and go slow. This Vietnamese monk gave the ultimate advice. He literally gave a universal advice. It doesn't matter where your eyes open. It doesn't matter in what form your eyes appear as. Just smile, breathe, and go slowly. You see, there is a difference between, I would say, those who smile unconditionally and those who don't. And if you're a person who unconditionally smiles, that means you have been born through knowledge, not of your own, but through knowledge. That means we may feel, okay, let me say it. Imagine poetically. That we suddenly, like everybody listening to this talk, there's 5 viewers right now. Imagine we all suddenly teleported back in time to a Amazonian shamanic tribe where they had this idea where they would put the oldest people and the youngest people together, like the newborn infant, and would hang around with the oldest person, because the oldest person was about to go to the spirit realm, and the newborn child had just stepped out of the spirit realm. Seriously, guys, certain anthropologists would be like, I'm simply saying, like, they had this view that there was this other world and that the old person was about to go back to that other world and the new person had just come from it. Okay, so technically there's another side to the coin of what we're experiencing as existence back in the day if we had teleported to a shamanic tribe. Now I'm saying that to keep that idea of the spirit realm and the idea of reality, it's as if upon further questioning, it's as if the mind is the spirit realm and the body is in the witnessing of the mind. Our mind, I dare say, is acting as the god of our body. So if our attention just goes to this mind, there's nothing more. But if we wonder about how the mind is even in the room, or I'll tell you this, first you wonder how the body is in the room, then you wonder how the mind is the room. It's like, how's my mind being a world right now? What is this? And of course, there is so many factors to it that really, when you look at the outer realm, you're seeing multidimensional maintenance. Multiple things are working. Even in biology, there's different systems working at the same time. So it could be that right now we are like an organ of a cosmic body. Imagine the red blood cells in your vein somehow became conscious of themselves, developed language, culture, and then they started to have sciences and philosophy and began suddenly debating, who are we? Imagine the red blood cells are wondering like who are we? Like some red blood cells in the vein are like, all right, there could be a god, there could be like, we could be part of a higher dimensional body we can't fathom. Then some red blood cells in the other red blood cells in the vein, imagine, are like, no man, there's no god, we only see red blood cells, what are you talking about? It's only red blood cells here. We're only cells, we're just a world of cells. And little do these cells know that we're telling a story about them. A lot of people have fathomed like just the possibility of world peace. They're like, okay, if like, there has been no world peace, eventually in a long enough time span there will be world peace. And peace comes from the same place where war comes from. That means the God of war and peace are standing in the same place. It comes from the inner realms. Believe it or not, everything does. Everything that we treat as meaning to what we see is an inner activity simultaneously inside an outer activity. It's just that some people saw a personality to the universe, some people didn't. And now, Mr. Within is here saying, hey, what if language was hollow and our eyes knew it all along? The secret that could never be a secret. That energy has nothing to hide. That's the truth. Dare to be multidimensional in a world that doesn't know all the ways it has yet to move. For me, it's a checklist. In every moment I can say my archetypal existence, my individualism, it does a scan. It's as if I scan the past. What I find from the past is my emotions. When I look at the past, I know why I feel how I feel. But sometimes when I look at the future, or let me say it like this, you look at the past, you see it as past. You look at the present, you see it has nothing to do, it has no purpose, it is just here. And then you look at the future, and that's where the ego of man has a place to live. That means literally the past is gone, the ego can't live there, you know? The ego's trying to live in the present, but Eckhart Tolle and Muji are like, get out of here, ego. You know, this is the here and now. You know, there's no ego here. You know, and so the ego gets out of there. Do you know? And so the ego is left only for the future. So there's literally two ways to live on this planet. Either there is no time and everything's happening at once and you can just smile as the ever-present, or you dare to still keep a future and walk towards something as if we are not here to just, you know, hold hands and sing. That there's work to be done. The great work of the civilization, the great work of species. We're gonna do something that I feel that animals, deep down, they're like, okay, there's some advanced thing going on. That means, here's the thing. If you could see yourself living in a better way right now, would you do it? Would you live that better way? And so it's one of those things where I think just the influence, just the way we behave as creatures, it's like, you know, it's like we can't really say we're earthlings. We can't say we're from Earth. Because we're behaving different than any other animal on this earth. It's as if like literally an alien, if an alien came down to a planet, it wouldn't identify with that planet. So like imagine an alien coming down to Earth, then going like with a herd of buffalo and running with a herd of buffalo. Like no alien would do that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a dissension of the potential you already have, you know? So I'm saying we are literally living like aliens on our own planet. We have separated from nature. We have totally used technology as like some next level tool, do you know? And we have visions of a multidimensional landscape potentially. And the multidimensional landscape is the salvation of human psychology, grouped together. It is how we build the hive. That means I feel really all meditative practice, I'm saying this generally intentionally, as if all the purpose of meditative practice to bring people to their presence, to the present, it's as if that has just made you ready. That means when you come to the present, your true work begins. Because we think we're a temporary being, it can be that eternity doesn't have to do anything. But it can be that if you felt you were right now an eternal being, like how Alan Watts says, imagine waking up as if you were never asleep. If we were at that level, then to be asleep would be just the game we're playing. Literally, a temporary life is the game of the eternal. Or as how Plato would say, time is the moving image of eternity. We wear a watch, but the universe laughs. Yeah. And it's all just like as if your direct experience is just presence of attention. Literally, attention is the dot, and everything is, at least in the inner realm, centered around your attention. So, and you know, somebody said love earlier in the chat section. We can say love is a multidimensional way of living. It could be that, like the Dalai Lama saying, compassion, compassion, compassion. He's trying to prepare the species for a multidimensional experience. What if the whole species became peaceful, and from that peacefulness, there were advancements of mind? We unlocked greater levels of collective human experience. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I hope this episode was helpful. Blessings. I'll be on Discord for those interested for a little bit. Blessings.